why can't Sharon Kowalski come home? Sharon Kowalski and Karen were in a lesbian relationship, and Sharon was hit by a drunk driver, and we organized the National Free Sharon Kowalski, and so we wrote the book together eventually because we could get no media, we could get no coverage. Karen was targeted as somehow an opportunist that was somehow using Sharon for her own purposes or something like that. And so I've been involved in peace issues, in just so many different things. And so I have put together some of my own classroom things. I wrote edited a book called Oppression and Social Justice, Critical Frameworks. And then this was a project that I did through the American Education Research Association with a number of progressive colleagues, because we wanted to show, actually it was inspired by the Alaska Native Knowledge Network, who developed standards. And I'm going to just read just a couple things from the very introduction of the book that will, I think, just kind of tell you what the book itself is about. And this book's, it's called Social Justice, Peace, and Environmental Education, and Transformational Standards is the subtitle, because it's a challenge to the whole standards movement, and the whole high stakes testing and all of that kind of thing. This book seeks to demonstrate that social justice, peace, and environmental preservation are integrally connected, that they are of equal importance, and that educators should play a major role in teaching students how to understand global problems and take corresponding social action. Inspired by the Alaska Native Knowledge Network's Standards for Culturally Responsive Schools, a dedicated group of educators has worked for the past several years to draft social justice, peace, and environmental education standards or principles. We believe SJPEE is best understood and taught in a global context, drawing upon many intellectual traditions, ways of knowing, and social movements. A global perspective increases awareness of the interconnections between all forms of suffering and liberation, and compels us to move beyond a self-centered, single issue, or national focus, to consider what is good for all, what is necessary for survival and recovery of the planet, and how our treatment of other species matters. Too few people are aware of the principles collaboratively distilled into international agreements, such as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, United Nations Conventions on Racial Discrimination, Discrimination Against Women, the rights of the child, biological diversity, the rights of persons with disabilities, indigenous rights, and other documents like the Coolangatta Statement, the Earth Charter, or the Animals Platform. Based on such documents, the authors share a single goal: to increase the quantity, quality, visibility, credibility, and accountability for social justice, peace, and environmental education in local communities and national educational agendas. We believe that central to our future well-being is our ability to foster the practice of these values in our own lives and in the lives of people around the world through education. And so each, just to mention some of the chapters, there's this introductory chapter, and then the next two chapters are, first of all, a chapter by Graham Smith, who is a Maori activist and educator, just an amazing person, who wrote, we got the term transformation, and he identifies transformational principles in Maori education. And then Ray Barnhart's work with the Alaska Native Knowledge Network, and he actually wrote these standards and got them to be integrated into the Alaska schools. So his work has been amazing. And then we have Linda Simcox, who did an analysis and critique of the education and what's happening with education, the corporatization of education. David Greenwood working on environmental education. And again, each one of these both does a very quick, because we felt that the other thing we felt so strongly was that there's a lot of critique and not much positive, like what can you do? And so one of the things is that only half of the chapter could be critique. The rest of it had to be like what can be done and ideas and transformational principles and things drawn from many places about what kinds of things could be taught to bring these issues out. Then we had, I wrote the chapter on peace and nonviolence and peace education. Then some children's rights activists wrote the chapter on children based on the Convention on the Rights of the Child. And then I wrote the chapter with Helena Peterson and Freeman Wickland on interspecies education for humans, animals, and the earth. And then there's there's another part on community struggles for global justice, peace, environmental education, on Latino students, Asian Americans, African people of African descent, and each one of those chapters making the connection again between what's happening globally and also what's happening within communities in the United States, and gender issues, disability issues, queer issues, and then trying to pull things together in terms of what kinds of things came out of all of these that were helpful. So the main, actually, Routledge was very interested in it. We had actually a whole bunch of publishers that were interested in the book to begin with, and then when we signed a contract with Routledge, they gave us a big hassle, and eventually were very harsh in their evaluation, and so I refused to give them any more deadlines, and I worked on it and sent them the final product, and they liked it and said we're going into publication immediately, and they published it. However, I cannot find anyone to do reviews on the book, and that's been my struggle, is that people are so busy doing their own work. No one wants to write no one wants to write reviews. And so I've had people that are willing, have even started and then not followed through with that. So again, it's very, even though it's finally published, and I think it's really has some wonderful materials, it's not really being used very much. So, what?
Any questions or comments, or do you want to
I think we should do all and then.
Exactly.
I just gotta go around.
Sure, if you would like to, or if somebody else would like to speak.
I'll go around. My story is pretty long and convoluted as far as becoming an academic. Try to make that part short. My father was an immigrant, had no education at all, so but he was very interested in intellectual discourse and taught himself to read and write in both Italian and English. And he had no education whatsoever. I'm not talking about higher education. He had no education, period. He was a peasant from the hills of the mountains of Calabria. And in his hometown, they called him the professor because he was so interested in issues and things and liked to play with words. So in a certain way, I'm kind of living his dream. But the reason I point that out about my father is that I am what is sociologically known as a marginal person. Used to be referred to as the marginal man. It's the marginal person, to be gender neutral. And that means I was caught between two cultures, the Italian culture and the US culture. And so I would go to school and argue with my teachers about things that my father told me, and then I'd come home and argue with my father about things that I supposedly learned at school. And so that didn't make me very popular in either location, but it's through that I developed my critical thinking skills, I think, and my realization that